Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. We are from Group 8 and in this video we are going to present about Islamic ethics in business practices.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Introduction to Islamic ethics in business practices. The original word for Islam is salama, which means peace, submission, and acceptance. It also refers to achieving peace with Allah, with inner peace, and with Allah creation by submitting to Allah, putting faith in Him, and also accepting His instruction and rulings. In Islamic thought, ethics are deeply rooted in religious teachings and encompass principles that guides individuals and societies towards moral behavior and righteousness. And Islam is not only religion, but it's also a way of life that Muslims have to follow. And Islam also covers everything, including business ethics. For example, amanah, adil, sadaqah, avoidance of riba, and gharar, and also social responsibility. And ethics is crucial to consider because without it, it can harm business and business partners that may stop their business activities.
Next is principles of Islamic ethics in business practices. So Islamic ethics are critical when it comes to business practices for Muslim. So here we are going to talk about some of the main principles about ethical business practices according to Islam. The first one is halal and haram. Islam sets specific guidelines for business ethics that are essentially decided by using the ideas of halal, which is lawful or permissible, and haram, which is illegal or prohibited, in accordance with Islamic jurisprudence. Businesses can only engage in useless dealings with goods and services that are deemed halal by Islamic principles, and they must abstain from actions that are expressly forbidden in Islam. For example, the manufacturing or selling of alcohol, pork, gambling, and interest-based transactions, or riba. On the other hand, any income or profit obtained from engaging in unlawful behavior is regarded as haram. This includes acting dishonestly, abusively, or in any way conducting business in opposition to Islamic law. In Islamic finance, it is strictly forbidden to charge or pay interest. Businesses are urged to look for alternate financing options, such as profit and loss sharing system that do not require interest, such as musyarakah and mudarabah. The second one is honesty and trustworthiness. One of the most fundamental necessities for conducting business is the concept of honesty and trustworthiness. The Prophet Muhammad SAW declared, "A Muslim may not sell a sale that has disgrace unless he explains his disgrace." This means that he prohibited vendors from placing rotten goods at the very bottom and brand new goods at the top. And this is done to trick people so that they will come and buy it since it looks brand new. But in fact, there are rotten ones underneath the good ones. In business dealings, honesty, or amanah, also highlights the significance of fulfilling promises and commitments. This includes any contracts, agreements, and commitments given to suppliers, consumers, workers, or other stakeholders. In Islamic ethics, it is considered a violation of trust to break promise or fail to fulfill obligations. In one example, a business owner might guarantee that a customer will receive a product by a specific date. In order to respect the honesty and trustworthiness principle, the company makes sure that the product will be delivered on schedule as well as meeting the customer's expectations while upholding its end of transaction.
Fairness and justice are fundamental principles in Islamic business practices, as stated by Abdullah. The concept of adl, which implies fairness, equity, and justice, are the principles that are rooted in Islamic teachings. Islamic ethics dictate that individuals should not take advantage of others' weaknesses or lack of knowledge. By adhering to this principle, Businesses can contribute to a more just and equitable society where all members are treated fairly and with dignity. Social responsibility and charity play significant roles in Islamic business ethics, reflecting the overarching principle of compassion and justice in Islam. Islamic teaching emphasizes the concept of zakat, which mandates giving a portion of one's wealth to those in need, showcasing a profound commitment to economic equity. In essence, the incorporation of social responsibility and charity in Islamic business ethics reflect the profound moral values inherent in the religion and underscores the interconnectedness of economic success and social welfare.
One of the major prohibitions in Islamic transaction is riba. What is riba? Riba is an excess income that a lender receives above the principal amount from the borrower. This act enables the lender to generate profit at the expense of their debtor. The nature of riba promotes inequality of wealth between the people in the society, where the rich will get richer and the poor will be poorer. This is due to the fact that the debtor, usually the poor, will have to pay back what they borrow back to the lender, which so happen to always be a rich person, and the amount they paid is the original amount plus an additional amount. And this is exploitation, and it is highly disliked in Islam. As a matter of fact, Islam taught us that a balanced economy is one where there is a share and fair distribution of wealth. It is even clearly stated in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 275, but Allah has permitted trade and forbidden interest, riba. So, one whose business consists of their client to pay them back at a later date must be careful not to accidentally implement riba. Another one of the major prohibitions in Islamic transaction is gharar. Gharar happens when the business hide any details about the product or services that they sell that can cause uncertainty and speculation to the buyer. These details usually include the price, the quality, the quantity, delivery time, or even the existence of the product itself. Uncertainty and ambiguity in any transaction will lead to misunderstandings, conflicts between buyer and seller, and conflicts defeat the spirit of brotherhood in Islam. Not only that, the act of gharar make it possible for one party, in this case the seller, to have an advantage over the other party, the buyer, where they can exploit or even deceive them. It is even narrated in a hadith Sahih Muslim that the Prophet, peace be upon him, prohibited any transaction that has any type of uncertainty. So it is no speculation that gharar is indeed prohibited in any business. Another prohibition a Muslim entrepreneur should avoid is the buying or selling of haram products or services. It is not a surprise that an Islamic business is prohibited from conducting a business that deals with prohibited items or services. As reported by Ahmad and Abu Dawud, the Prophet said, when Allah prohibited a thing, He prohibited the price of it as well. For example, in Surah Al-Ma'idah verse 90, there is an explicit prohibition about Khamar, which can be translated as wine or intoxicant. Therefore, anything that can intoxicate one's mind are prohibited to be manufactured and sold, which also include drugs and cannabis. Another example of prohibited products to be sold are crosses, idols, and pork. Other than that, this verse also forbids any Muslim to do gambling. So, not only are Muslims prohibited to gamble, but it is also prohibited to provide any place or services for gambling. Other than that, Islamic business should also avoid providing any illegal services such as prostitution or superstition. By not dealing with any of the haram items and services, Muslims can not only help themselves from committing sins, but they can also prevent others from doing it too. Another prohibition that an Islamic business should avoid is ihtikar and monopoly. Ihtikar is defined as the holding of goods and withholding them before selling them in the future date at a higher price than usual, due to the scarcity of the goods and the rising of consumer demands. This is unlawful in Islam, especially if it involves essential items such as foods, because by doing so, society and the people in it will suffer. It is even narrated in Sahih Muslim that the Prophet Muhammad said, "He who hoards is a sinner," further reinforcing the fact that hoarding is not permissible. As for monopoly, monopoly can happen when there is only one supplier or manufacturer of certain products or services in the community with no other competition. This leads to the concentration of wealth in a small number of hands, which is prohibited in Islam, because it can exploit both workers and customers. The scholars also agree that monopoly is a type of public oppression and exploitation, and thus should be prohibited in the hope to avoid tyranny in the community. Islam harshly condemns anyone who, motivated by greed and ambition, build fortune at the expense of others, or who become wealthy through manipulating the cost of food and other essentials, because this is exploitation.
Next, difference between Islamic ethics and non-Islamic ethics. First one is in ownership and property rights. In Islam, owning things is seen as a responsibility given by Allah. But in non-Islamic ethics, for example in capitalism, it's more about individuals owning things for themselves. Second one is in guidance in economic activities. Islamic economics emphasizes moral and religious consideration, while capitalism often prioritizes profit motives. The third one is in perspective on inequality. Islam tries to reduce the gap between rich and poor by giving charity or zakat. But capitalism can sometimes make the gap bigger because it's all about making as much profit as possible. And the last one is in role of government. Islam says that the government should help make sure things are fair to everyone, but capitalism thinks that the government should mostly stay out of businesses.
Next, the challenge of Islamic ethics in business practices. There are several challenges of Islamic ethics in business practices. Means that some business cannot deal or not align with Islamic teaching, despite the clear ethical guidelines that are provided in Al-Quran and Sunnah. Here are 4 issues contributing to the Islamic ethics that are interconnected or intertwined with each other in globalization, online marketing, consumerism, and halal industry. So without further ado, let's look into the detail. Number 1 is globalization, the lack of ethical standard. Islamic emphasize on principles as fairness, transparency, honesty, and social responsibility in business dealing, which contrasts to the global economy where profits are maximized. The use of usury or bribery in financial transaction. Islamic finance prohibit the use of riba and promote risk sharing instead. While Islamic finance contravene with conventional banking norm, cultural diversity, difficulties on navigating cultural norm while adhering to Islamic ethical guideline, supply chain management, ensuring ethical practices across global supply chain can be a complex, the legal and regulatory harmony, balancing Islamic principle with international legal framework require careful navigation. Challenge number 2, online marketing. The lack of Islamic value. Because of globalization, mixed ideology that opposes Islamic ethics has widened. Thus, we have to ensure that online marketing content align with Islamic value, avoiding the inappropriate or misleading advertising that contradict ethical guideline and rather emphasizes the principle of honesty, transparency, and avoiding deceptive practices. Halal product and service. Due to the online activity, the halal service and product must be emphasized and protect against marketing tactics such as false promises or misleading information, which contravene a principle of honesty and integrity. Sensitivity content and messaging. The global advertises many that include insensitivity content messaging behind that might offenses the audience, for example, promoting non-halal acts or promoting non-halal food. Challenge number 3, consumerism. Materialism versus moderation. Islamic ethics emphasize moderation and avoid excessive materialism. Businesses face the challenge of promoting responsible consumption while operating in consumer-driven markets. Excessive consumption. Islamic teaching discourage ostentatious and wasteful spending. Businesses must navigate consumer trends that encourage conspicuous consumption while promoting ethical behavior, social responsibility, integrating Islamic principle of social responsibility and community welfare into business operation, addressing societal need beyond profit maximization. Cultural context, recognizing diverse interpretation of Islamic ethics across different cultural contexts, adapting business strategy to align with local value and norms. The last challenges is the halal industry. The challenge of Islamic ethics in halal industry involve ensuring compliances with Sharia principle and meeting consumer expectation while navigating global market dynamics. Halal certification, ensuring that product and service meet halal standard Islamic jurisprudence, including ingredient, production, process, and ethical consideration. Supply chain integrity, maintaining halal integrity throughout the supply chain from sourcing raw material to manufacturing and distributing to guaranteeing authenticity and traceability. Across cultural awareness, adapting halal standard to the diverse culture context and regulatory framework, considering variation in interpretation and implementation across different regions. Consumer trust and confidence, building and maintaining consumer trust through transparent labeling, certification, and communication of halal compliance, especially in global market with varying standards.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am 22B0801 Nur Shahirah Nabilah and I will presenting regarding zakat. Zakat is a mandatory alms payment made by Muslims upon earning a particular sum of wealth known as nisab and given to a certain group of individuals known as asnaf. The Quran affirms the obligation of zakat from Surah At-Taubah verse 103. Of their wealth take alms, that so thou mightest purify and sanctify them, and pray on their behalf. Verily their prayers are a source of security for them, and Allah is one of who heareth and knoweth. Zakat is to purify the soul. Zakat acts as a purification agent for the giver's soul, removing impurities such as avarice and a blind admiration of luxuries. A human being is inherently designed to desire wealth excessively. Thus, by giving away the wealth, it cleanses the giver's soul by removing selfishness and arrogance in their hearts. More importantly, Islam teaches that whatever we possess is not our belonging because it has been given to us by Allah, and hence Allah is the true owner of every of our assets. So money should not be absorbed by certain individuals while the rest of the other community suffers from famine, dehydration, and illness. Islam emphasizes compassion and prohibits self-gratification and ignorance. Charity or sadaqah means to offer help and support without expecting any kind of recompense or praise in return, but simultaneously having a pure intention of pleasing Allah solely. In general, sadaqah refers to any activity involving expenditures for the sake of Allah, as stated in Al-Quran, Surah Al-Hadid, verse 7, "Believe in Allah and His Messenger and donate from what He has entrusted you with, so those of you who believe and donate will have a mighty reward." In Muslim tradition, sadaqah evokes a sequence of moral conditions that start off with the act of earning halal wealth, as well as collecting supplies, distribution along with collaboration, while obeying to rules of ethics constantly. Charity must be given sincerely, modestly, rather than utilizing it for fame and reputation. This is essential considering one of the most outstanding aspects of sadaqah is its anonymity. Islam suggests its followers to make contributions privately, maybe with the aim to keep the optimal focus to dedication and self-purification, as well as preserving the honor and prestige of whoever is obtaining the sadaqah from the visible eyes. Obviously, giving charity publicly is best as it can show a great example for community. However, if someone is afraid of showing off or desires to show off, yani riya, when offering charity, or he will cause misery or disgrace to the unfortunate person, he should give it in private. In conclusion, Islamic ethics plays an important role in determining business processes by highlighting concepts like equality, truthfulness, openness, and social accountability. These standards of conduct are based on Islamic teachings given in the Quran and Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Financial transactions in Islam are supposed to be done with honesty, without uncertainty, monopoly, or any unfair methods. Islamic finance provides alternative approaches that encourage collaboration on risk, avoidance of interest, and investment in projects that are helpful to community. Furthermore, Islamic business include greater community welfare, such as equitable income distribution and assistance to the poor, such as mandatory charity, yani zakat, and voluntarily charity, yani sadaqah, are vital elements to reduce deprivation and enhance equal treatment. Thus, implementing Islamic principles into business activities not only guarantees ethical behavior, but it also develops reliability, develops connections, and increases the likelihood of longevity in the world's economy.